friends, it's Amanda here, and today we're doing another ranking my ColourPop palettes video. The last one I did was ranking all my 9 pans since many more 9 pan palettes have been released. In today's video, I'm going to be ranking 21 different eyeshadow palettes from ColourPop. These are all the odd size palettes, so anything besides the more standard 9 and 12 pan palettes, everything from these little mini 6 pans, a bunch of their collaboration palettes, all the way up to the 30 pan mega palettes that they've started releasing. These are all the oddball size palettes. This entire ranking my ColourPop palettes project, I'm hoping will culminate in a huge ranking video where I take all these smaller sections of rankings and sort of pit them against each other and do a comprehensive ranking. I'm very scared of doing that. I have every ColourPop palette ever released because I am a crazy person. I don't need you to tell me that. Before we get into the actual ranking part, which is shot overhead so you can see me working through the palettes on my big desk, I just want to remind you that this is just based on my opinions, my preferences, my style, my use of the palettes. You may have a completely different opinion than me, and I think that's great. We can all sort of coexist. We don't have to agree on which palettes are best from ColourPop. That's one of the things I love about ColourPop is they do come out with a lot of products, a lot of palettes. So there's something for everyone to love. What I love, you might not like, and vice versa. I may not really rank your favorite things very highly, and that's okay. That's okay. Let's get into the rankings now. I am totally just off the cuff doing this. I had some time to film today, and I know that this is a project I want to work on this year, so this should be equal parts fun and stressful for me. I'm gonna do what I did in the 9 pan video, and I'm gonna go through these and do a rough sort where I just pick top of the pile, middle of the pack, and then my bottom choices, and then we'll refine the ranking from there. Okay, I've got my piles sorted. These are my top picks, middle of the pack, and my least favorites. I just want to say before we get into any further ranking here that first of all, a lot of these are collaborations, and just because somebody's collaboration palette isn't my most favorite thing ever is not personal towards the collaborator. We may just have different styles or different tastes, and that is totally fine. It does not mean that I don't like them just because their palette isn't my most favorite one. I also want to say, because I got a few comments like this in my ranking my 9 pan palettes video, that it's not fair for pressed glitter to automatically push things to the bottom of the list. This is my preference. This is my list and my opinion. I don't like pressed glitter in my palettes, and therefore it is totally fair for that to be a factor when I'm ranking these. If you like those palettes and you would rank them differently, that is great, and you should do whatever you want in your own videos. But this is just my opinion. That's my preference. Okay, so anyway, let's get to sorting. Let's do the least favorite ones first because I feel like that's the easiest. I don't have as much attachment to them. So let's sort through these first. Okay, these are all the palettes that when I was doing my little rough sort were at the bottom of the pack for me. Again, I don't think these are inherently bad palettes. They just weren't my favorites, and that's all there is to it. So I'm gonna go through these. I'm gonna open these up and sort of think back to my time using them, and then we'll start to put them in order. All right, here's the official ranking from bottom to top. This is the Zoella collab, the Brunch Date palette. This is the cutest packaging ever, but it just didn't really do much for me. And there are other neutral palettes that I preferred over this one, so A+ for packaging, but that's about it for me. So this is in the bottom, Brunch Date, followed by Truly Madly Deeply. This started out as an Ulta exclusive. I really had to put in some work to find this palette. I like the color scheme in here. There's just so many glitters. There's so many re-promotes. Even though I like the color scheme, I love the packaging. It's just never really been that much of a necessity for me because I have almost all of these in singles and I don't like the pressed glitter. So I wanted to like it, but I just don't really love it that much. just because of all the repeats and all the glitters. It's not adding anything to my collection. Next is the Midnight Masquerade palette. This is the third Disney collaboration. This is another one that I really wanted to like, but it was just okay for me. Again, inclusion of pressed glitters, and they did go for a little bit more color here. I mean, we're getting this really pretty green. We have a little bit of pink, a little bit of blue. Oh, and this duochrome shade is super, super beautiful, but it just didn't really do it for me. If there weren't these glitters and these were two super cool, colorful shades, this probably would move way up in my rankings, but it's just okay for me. I was expecting some really fun, bold Disney colors, and it wasn't quite what I wanted it to be, so it's okay though. Next is Golden State of Mind. This was from a holiday collection. They actually sold some of these in Sephora. It was like the first time ColourPop was in stores, and this is an all shimmer palette. It's super pretty. It just doesn't do that much for me. I have all of these shades in other palettes alongside mattes and other finishes. So this one's, you know, it's fine. It's just not one that I'm dying to reach for all the time. That's the Golden State of Mind palette. Great quality, just doesn't stand on its own for me. Although these two paired together could be something. So Golden State of Mind and then the Take Me Home palette. I miss these little tiny 6-pan palettes. I love these little palettes. Cute and just not really something that I'm dying to use. Good shades, good quality, just not my favorite. The reason this ranked so high is because of all of these, I am most likely to grab this one to just throw into my makeup bag if I'm traveling. And it's cute, it's useful, the quality is good, it has that little mirror, which I do really like to have a mirror, especially in my small palettes. So Take Me Home is next. Then the original Disney designer palette, it's a princess thing. It's okay, it's just a little bit boring for me. It's good quality, I just don't reach for this. Even when I'm gonna do a neutral look, this isn't the palette that I'm clamoring to reach for. Pretty packaging though. And then at the top of the pack is the Perception palette. Didn't have enough of a balance of mattes for me, but this is actually a pretty decent palette. It just didn't quite make the cut, but this will be at the top of this section for me. Really cute packaging too. So that's my least faves ranked. Okay, good work so far. Let's go to the middle of the pack now. Let's start at the bottom of the pile again. This is my least favorite of the middle. This is another one of these cute little 6-pan palettes. This is called Make Up Your Mind. Does not have a mirror this time. And I believe that all these shades were voted on by ColourPop fans. They are all shimmers. It's an interesting little color story. It's definitely a cute companion palette, but this just doesn't really stand on its own. Probably would pair really well with one of those more neutral palettes that we saw in the last round. So like the It's a Princess thing or the little Take Me Home palette. This would be a good companion palette with one of those. I like the shades in here. I just can't use this by itself. I really wish they would make some more of these 6-pan palettes though. They're so cute. Sort of the same reasoning for this Semi Precious palette. This is an all shimmer palette. I do like that it's fewer shades, more concise, more variation than the Golden State of Mind palette. I believe Semi Precious and Golden State of Mind came out around the same time for holiday. I just appreciate this one a little bit more because there are more color choices in here, and again I would use this as a companion palette to a more neutral palette and give a little shimmery pop. So that's Semi Precious. Next are the Fortune and Fame palettes. These were sister palettes. Fortune's warm toned, Fame is cool toned, and Fame is one of their only very, very cool toned palettes to date. Unfortunately, I believe this one's been discontinued. I appreciate the fact that they did go for a cool toned palette. This one doesn't have quite enough variation among the shades for me. I feel like a lot of these mattes, these shimmers, there's a lot of repetitive shades in here, so I wish that they had chosen to do this in a 12-pan instead. I think that would be a lot more useful and more interesting. This isn't a bad palette. I do appreciate that they even went for some cool tone neutrals, which are definitely super useful. So that's the Fame palette. Right ahead of it is the Fortune palette. Personally, I do prefer warm tones on myself, and this one just has more variation. It's a little bit more interesting. We're getting this really cool duochrome shade called Miser, and this isn't as neutral as the Fame palette. There's some gold, orange, purple tones, so I just felt like this was a little bit more dynamic, so that's why it came in ahead of Fame for me. Now we're finally seeing some of the mega palettes. This is the It's All Good palette. This does have a very similar feeling to the Fortune palette, but just more variety. Unfortunately, there are 2 pressed glitters in here, but as you can see, I still didn't put it in the bottom just because of that. I won't ever use these on my eyes. Do what you want if you're a grown-up, but they are not eye safe. I really like the other shades in here. I like the gradient. There's a good light, medium, and deep shade range in here. We've got some really beautiful pops of color. Overall, I do really like this palette. I just wish that it didn't have those pressed glitters, but overall, it's a good palette. Good duochromes. You can see I've already gotten mine pretty dirty. Yet another warm tone palette. This is the Lit palette in collaboration with Bretman Rock. I like the curation here. The shadow quality is beautiful. There's a little bit neutral, a little bit bright, a good mix. We have lots of really great staple mattes here, really beautiful shimmers. I just love the way this is put together, the way it's curated. I do think this is one of the better warm tone palettes. As you can see, it's ranking above Fortune and It's All Good. I just like a concise color story. I find this is really user-friendly and great quality, and yep, really like this one. All right, last minute switch. I'm trading my 1 and 2 spots here. Next will be the Wet palette, also in collaboration with Bretman Rock. It was so bold to do a very blue palette. This was at a time when people really weren't doing all blue palettes. Love the inclusion of these little neutral mattes over here. If I'm gonna do blue on the lid, these are the type of shades I really need for me personally to create a look that I love. Great variation, again, just beautiful quality, nice balance of mattes and shimmers. Really a good palette, an interesting palette, and a very well thought out color scheme from the Wet palette. On the top of the middle pack here is the So Jaded palette. I know a lot of people really love this palette. I do like it. As you can see where it's ranked, it's not super low in the rankings. I love the packaging. I am a fan of Kathleen's. I think this is an interesting twist on a rainbow palette. There's a lot of good staple neutrals in here. I am disappointed to see 2 pressed glitters in here. However, I will give Kathleen props because she actually came out and said in her reveal video not to use the glitters on your eyes. So I think that was just really commendable, and I think a lot of people would glaze over something like that in a collaboration, and she didn't. So I think that was great. Love the jewel tones in here. I do think that the quality is really exceptional across the board. If we had other shades besides these pressed glitters, this would have easily made it into the top of the pack. But unfortunately for me, these are just 2 non-shadows, so I didn't quite make the cut. A good palette for sure, a good color scheme, and one that I do enjoy. It's just those glitters kept it out of the top for me. That's it for the middle of the pack ranking. Now for the hard part, we're gonna do the top. All right, here we go. That was actually a little bit easier than I thought it was gonna be, and I realize now as I've ranked these that a bunch of my top favorites are discontinued, and I'm so sorry for that. And you know what? When I rank my favorite 12 pan palettes, I think a lot of my top favorites of those are discontinued too. ColourPop, what are you doing to us? All right, let's go through this ranking. In 6th place, I have the Chasing Rainbows palette. This is from the holiday collection a couple years back. Love the holographic packaging. I thought this was so joyful and so fun. Again, a great take on a rainbow palette. This is a lot brighter, whereas the So Jaded version of a rainbow palette was a little bit more muted, more jewel tones. I love the balance here. Some things you're gonna notice I love in a palette are not only the absence of pressed glitter, but I love a balance between mattes and shimmers, neutrals and brights. That's something that really inspires me and makes me go back to a palette over and over again. This was such a great holiday collection. I know there were mixed feelings about this very rainbow theme, but I was here for it, and I think this is such a great palette. Also, this packaging is super easy to clean. You'll see from some of the other ones that I really like that that when they have the more matte cardboard packaging, they just are destroyed. But this shimmery packaging is really easy to clean up. In 5th place is the Misunderstood palette. I didn't really realize until I started ranking these how much I truly appreciate this palette. The packaging is stunning. The theme is so fun. A mix of neutrals and brights. I do wish this had just a couple more mattes, but overall I find this color scheme really interesting. It fits with the theme. This is a really fun palette and it makes me drawn to color schemes that I don't usually like to go for, so I really appreciate about this palette, and this is in spot number 5. 4th place, we have the Bare Necessities palette. Brace yourself, this palette is very dirty. I don't know if you could tell. I'll give you a close-up so you can see this thing is just absolutely, it's a bloodbath in here. Usually I keep my palettes really clean because I like them to look pristine in photos, and this one I just, between using it so much and the fact that it does have this more difficult to clean material, I've just sort of let this one go and accepted the fact that, you know, not all my palettes are going to be beautiful and clean, and this one's really dirty and junked up and I really like it. So there you have it. I gave this palette a good review. I love that this is the only mega palette with no pressed glitters. We have a great gradient of light, medium, and deep shades here. All very neutral. We've got cool tones, we've got warm tones, we've got some mauve tones, we've got shimmer, we've got matte, we've got glittery matte. We've got everything we could want in a neutral palette here with super high quality. I just keep going back to this palette over and over again. I love to pair this with some really bright single shades like my Super Shocks or my Jelly Much. This is just a total staple for me. Maybe it won't be for everybody, but it definitely is for me. It deserves a top spot in my ranking. In 3rd place is the Through My Eyes palette. This is another collaboration with I Love Sarai. I take this palette traveling, especially for my like warm weather trips. Anytime I go to the beach, I really like to take this with me because it just has this gorgeous tropical feel to it. Another one that is, you can tell, has been used and is not clean. That's the sign of how much I really love a palette sometimes, is if I just keep using it and don't even bother to clean it because I know I'm just going to use it and junk it up again. I do like that this one has a mirror. Like I said, I like to travel with this one. Here we're hitting all the marks for Amanda's favorites. Balance of mattes and shimmers, some bright colors mixed in with some neutrals. That's how I like to wear brights, paired with neutrals. Love this palette. Every time I use this, I remember how much I love it. Yeah, this is just such a great little palette. I hope this is still available because I really do like this one. I think this is, well, as you can see from the ranking, I think this is one of the best collaborations they've ever done. In 2nd place, this is one of the 6-pan palettes. This is the Pretty Much palette. I feel like this was so underrated. This is such an interesting little color scheme. Super curated. 3 mattes, 3 shimmers, and it's got such a sense of style to it. I don't know how to explain it. I think you could really get 3 different looks from this, and that's amazing for a 6-pan palette. You can go all neutral. I think you can go pinky red, and I think you can go for like, well, 4 looks really, because you can make a light neutral or a deep neutral by combining these 2 rows. You can make a really soft pinky red look, or you can make a really vampy pinky red look. I think this is inspiring. This is color curation at its best. This is sort of the lost art of palette curation. Maybe that's over dramatic, but I just really love this little palette, and every single time I have a 6-pan palette in my hand, I'm like, I wish they would make more of these. Maybe if I collaborate with ColourPop ever in my wildest dreams, I should make a 6-pan palette come back. What do you think? Tweet them, tell them. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Oh my gosh, let me quit. All right, I didn't even have to think about this one. This is the #1 spot for me. Another holiday release from a couple years ago. I believe this came out around the same time as Golden State of Mind and Semi Precious. I could be wrong. It was a couple years ago. This is the All I See Is Magic palette. I love this palette. This is just everything I want. These beautiful jewel tone colors. Got a nice rich red, this sort of reddish purple color. Really pretty green brown duochrome. Can you even see that? Can you see that? We have this like greenish brown purple duochrome color. I love the soft peaches mixed in with the warm neutrals. I love this palette so much. I'm so sorry that this is discontinued because I do think this is one of the best ColourPop palettes they ever made. Why? Why is it gone? It's so beautiful. Okay, you probably already know why I like this. No pressed glitters, balance of mattes and shimmers, rich, really rich jewel tone colors paired with some beautiful neutrals. We have cool neutrals, we have warm neutrals. It's just everything I want. I've got an inner corner highlight shade. I can do a soft peach look. I can do a vampy look. I can do a pop of color look. I love this palette. I wish I would have bought an extra one so that I could do like a cool giveaway, but I didn't know at the time. I didn't know. I'm so sorry. Whew. Okay, let's run through these really quickly. I'm gonna do like a quick montage so that you can see the entire list in order. How does that sound? Okay, let's try it. Let's do it. Another ranking palettes in the book, slowly but surely moving towards comprehensive ranking. Although we'll never really have that because ColourPop's gonna keep coming out with new palettes every time we turn around. Every time we turn the page on the calendar, there will be new ColourPop palettes for us to love, hate, and just feel pretty mediocre towards. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the palettes that I talked about today. Which ones are your favorites? Which ones are your least favorite? Are you dreading me ranking the 12 pans as much as I am? Because that's all that's left now. I love to hear what you guys think about things too, so make sure you leave your thoughts in the comments below. And as always, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in my next video. Bye! The ranking part would... I don't know if there'll be a lot of bloopers in this one. Probably just this part right now where I'm talking. We'll see. Shouldn't underestimate myself, should I? Sound good? Good. Okay, alright. Bye!